Hello, I'm Susan Iman, the Executive Director of the Lethbridge Sport Council. We are proud to welcome you to the YQL Stories, which stands for Your Quality Life Stories, where we have the privilege to talk with friends we've met through sport. We're pleased to have you join us to hear about their experiences and explore how sport and active living can impact your quality life.
On this episode of YQL Stories, we are fortunate enough to hear from Joe Meli, a decorated judoka hailing from Lethbridge, Alberta, who initially pursued a promising career in hockey and ended up transitioning to the sport of judo, in which he represented Canada at 4 Summer Olympic Games. Joe is a sport enthusiast, a local legend, and most importantly, a family man who has exemplified how to represent Canada on the world stage with respect and sportsmanship. Joe would also like us to give a quick shout out to his daughters Lindsay and Ashley. He's very proud of you. And we would like you all to please join us now in listening to the incredible story of the Lethbridge legend, Joe Meli. Welcome, listeners. Today we have a very special guest who exemplifies perseverance, excellence, and integrity. Joe Meli, born and raised in Lethbridge, Alberta, is a member of the Lethbridge Sports Hall of Fame and has been a trailblazer in the sport of judo. Achieving his black belt at just the age of 16, Joe went on to represent Canada in 3 Summer Olympic Games? 4? 4 Summer Olympic Games.
Moscow, 1980 was a boycott.
And was the first Canadian judoka to do so. He is an 11-time Canadian champion, a 5-time medalist at the Pan Am American Games, and has recently been awarded the 8th degree black belt from Judo Canada, marking him as Alberta's highest-ranking judoka over the past decade. Beyond his judo career, Joe has also made significant contributions to the Lethbridge community, mentoring young athletes and fostering the spirit of sportsmanship and excellence. It's honestly an honor to have you with us today, Joe. I just want to say welcome, and how's it going?
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today, Alec.
Wonderful. So we'll get right into it. Basically, I kind of like to get into the grassroots, like where everything started.
Okay.
So back when you first started going into judo, you were telling me earlier it was around the age of 7 you started?
Yeah, I started at age 7. My dad got me involved. The next year, my brother got involved, my brother Tony.
Cool.
And my sister Rose got involved a couple of years later as well. But yeah, I took the judo right away. I really enjoyed it at the Lethbridge Judo Club with Mr. Senda, who was my coach ever since I started judo. And I just loved it. I took off right away. It was something I could really do. And then when other sports came along, I really got involved in everything else as well. Minor sports started a bit later back then in the 60s. And so I really took to everything. But judo, I always hung in there with me.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things that remained, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, most everything I did was team sports, whether it was baseball or, hockey,
Yep.
basketball. Everything was always team sports. But this one thing that I started first was judo, and it was just me against someone else, and nothing anybody else did mattered. It was just what I did. I controlled the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's something that I always really enjoyed.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that your dad got you into it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Was there any other mentors, or do you want to talk a little bit like how he got into it and how he introduced it to you?
Yeah, well, my dad worked for Mr. Senda in his painting decorating business.
Gotcha.
And he had the judo school started way back before I started.
Okay.
And as soon as I was old enough, my dad got me involved.
That's cool.
And then my brother was a year younger, so Tony got in the next year, and so on with my sister.
That's wow.
Yeah,
a little bit of a family thing.
Yeah, they cool. Ended up staying as long as they did for whatever reason. My brother had some injuries, and then he got more into, as time came on, he was more basketball. But
gotcha.
Yeah,
quite.
And he played football and got hurt, and blah blah blah. It's all of that stuff. But yeah, I just my dad got us in there, and I just kind of stuck with it.
That's awesome. And so it sounds like your brother had a bit of trouble with injuries and stuff like that throughout his career.
Well, yeah, just stupid things that happen, like, a wrist and then his back.
It's a contact sport.
Yeah, and so he ended up, basketball was his thing by the time he got to high school, playing for the Cougars and stuff.
So during that time when you were kind of, let's call it your beginning years of judo, that age 7 until you're 18 or whatever, was there any major obstacles or barriers that you kind of had to go through or challenges that you faced that?
Yeah, Alec, I'll tell you. By the time I was playing rep hockey,
Yep.
um, on the Bantam ACT reps, and then midget hockey, and then moving up to junior.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey was the main focus.
Gotcha.
I still dabbled with my judo and stayed involved in it.
Yep.
But hockey was kind of really what I wanted to do. But
interesting.
It was kind of funny back then. A lot of guys did lots of different sports.
Yep.
And the judo always helped me. It kept me fit.
Yep.
And starting from a young age, I didn't even lift weights till I was in like 20-ish.
Wow.
When I had to change my program. But,
that's very impressive.
Hockey was the thing.
That was the thing, yeah.
The one obstacle was Mr. Sanda didn't like it. He wanted to keep me in judo and get me to take those next steps and move up, but he was pretty fair about it. I mean, he kept me always in the back of his mind, hoping, I don't know. I'm sure he wished me well, but
probably saw something in you. It sounds like a little bit, right?
He, I remember him saying, "I know you're good in hockey, but whatever happens, we'll see." And things did change as things went along.
Yeah, and we'll get into that kind of. Come back to judo. I want to touch on hockey for a bit first.
Okay.
It's quite evident you're a multi-sport athlete, accomplished hockey player. I have a little bit of research here in the WHL Lethbridge Broncos, the 75-76 season. You had 19 goals, 28 assists for 47 points, and kind of right before that, during that same year in 1975. The Canada Winter Games, which were held here in Lethbridge.
Yes.
You were the MVP, you were just telling me, and top scorer and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Alex here. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute to talk to you about some opportunities we provide here at the Lethbridge Sport Council. So we run several programs throughout our community, such as our drop-in youth program, our roving gyms program, and our sport volunteer hub. These help provide inclusive sport access to youth and individuals of all ages and backgrounds. And did I mention that these programs are free of charge? Yeah, you heard me right. They're completely free. Please check out the links in our episode bio if you are interested in learning more about our programs and our volunteer opportunities. And if you want to do your part in providing a platform for our community programs to thrive, donations are greatly appreciated and can be done so by clicking the donations link in our bio. Thanks for listening, and now back to hearing from our Olympians. I guess
we had a good team.
Yeah, my question, let's just talk about that for a bit, because that's a pretty cool accomplishment, to be not only an Olympic athlete in a judo, but be the MVP of another completely different sport.
Yeah.
So what was that like? I guess not balancing the two, but trying to choose.
So, yeah, at that point, I really wasn't doing much judo at all. A little bit in the off season.
And how old would you have been ish in there?
That'd be 17, 18.
Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I played with the Native Sons that year.
Okay.
And the Broncos called me up for 2 games that first year they were here.
Wow, that's cool. Okay.
But they kept an eye on our team, the Native Sons, that year, and they did call up a few other players. I'm forgetting probably a few of the guys, but I think Reg Osmond and Mark Scheidner, some of the guys that were called up. I think they were looking at bringing up some other players. But I played 2 games back to back, Saturday, Sunday, and we were off that weekend, so that's why it kind of worked good for both teams.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was pursuing hockey all the way there, and then the next year I played the full year. Yeah, that full year that you mentioned.
Yes.
And from that point on, I was basically just doing, and they really don't let you, once you sign a junior contract.
Oh yeah.
They don't want you doing anything else. They don't want you getting hurt. Yeah. Skiing or doing judo.
Oh yeah. When I played hockey, if we went skiing over Christmas break, you were in trouble when you came back. Yeah.
So when you sign a deal with a team, like that's what you're doing. You're all in. And that's what I want to be anyways.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's how that all happened. And from there, we played the Saskatoon Blades in the first round of the playoffs. And we ended up losing to them in the first round.
Okay.
So
tough bounce there, I guess.
In Saskatoon.
Oh, of course.
They beat us there, and then we were eliminated. I'll tell you, I'm trying to remember exactly, but it could have been like 2 days later, maybe a day later.
Yeah.
I get a phone call from Mr. Senda, my judo
Your
teacher.
old judo teacher, yeah.
Asking me what my plans were because he knew we were knocked out. And I
He
don't think he
jumped
knew
right
a
on
lot.
that.
I don't think he knew a lot about how everything all worked and
Yeah.
you know what I could be doing, play as an overage or go try and play in the States or something. You know, I wasn't even really sure, but he said, "Why don't you come to the provincial championships in Edmonton? It's in a." It was like
For judo, right?
Judo.
Okay.
It was like in 3 weeks. And I really didn't do hardly any judo for 2 years.
Wow.
So then I went up. And so
Why not, right?
he says, you're going to be top 3 at least in Alberta because they send the top 3 or 4 in every weight class.
Okay.
And I was a light heavyweight. So I went up to Edmonton, made the team. And then I went to Montreal to the Canadian Championships because the Olympics were in Montreal in 76.
I was going to say that's 76.
So a lot of the national championships were held in Montreal.
Kind of like a preparation,
Yep.
get the country ready for it. Yeah.
So judo wasn't any different.
Yep.
And I went to the nationals and I cleaned up. I won the gold medal.
That's
and now
amazing.
that put a real wrench into what Judo Canada had planned for the team because they had
You just kind of came out of nowhere.
Exactly.
To
and
them
there
at
was
least, right?
there was well they'd known I would I fought in juniors and all that stuff, 15, 16.
But being off the scene for that 2 years,
And then my main
card.
focus was hockey. So I kind of bumped that individual out of his spot, which caused a real commotion in Judo Canada and even went to court over it and everything. And, I ended up being selected.
Good for you.
And I made the team. So I went to Montreal for the Olympics, training there with the national team, getting ready for the Olympic Games end of August. And of course, I'm missing all these camps and things with hockey, wondering what's going on. But I was waiting for the draft, the summer draft.
That would have been draft eligible year,
So I'm there waiting for the draft, and it wasn't like it is today. So I find out, look at the list in the paper, everybody that got drafted. I'm in Montreal, and I didn't get drafted.
Okay.
You don't have an agent or anything. I don't know how many people back in those days had agents. I didn't.
Yeah. Definitely not as
and I know
as
a teammate of mine, Brian Sutter, never had an agent. He was his own agent. He tells great stories about that.
Well, if you know hockey, you know Brian Sutter, that's for sure. Yeah.
Awesome, yeah. So, I ended up making that team. I trained very hard, It's very hard to train for like a combative sport like that. People sometimes don't really get it. I mean, I trained way harder in judo back then than we ever trained in hockey. Way different. Different.
And it's a completely different training regimen.
It is. Assuming, right? It is. Now the guys train a lot harder in hockey. There's reasons for that, but it was great. I lost first round to West German, who was already an accomplished international competitor.
Gotcha.
And is like 30-ish older, and I was just 20.
Yeah, so a bit more of a veteran presence to say rookie for lack of a better term,
just starting out my first kick
international, at it. Like Olympic rookie, I guess.
That was just out of the blue too. It wasn't like
I mean,
anybody was expecting me. Not even like 4 months before that, thinking like,
I mean,
we've got a guy
playing
already.
Hockey season. Yeah, I'll try the provincials, and then all of a sudden you're an Olympic.
Yeah,
like I'm assuming that had to happen like pretty.
Yeah, quickly, pretty fast. Right? Yeah, I got to get on the mat after I won provincials about 4 weeks, and then off to nationals and made the team.
Gotcha. And then how much longer-ish after would the Olympics have been then? Like right
August.
Away, August.
Gotcha. So we trained all from the spring all the way through.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I know it's a little bit ago, but like just talking about that difference in training regimen. So what? Were you, or if you can remember exactly, what did you guys do as judokos preparing for that first Olympics?
Well, it's a real meat grinder. Like you're doing 2 practices a day, usually Sundays off. And that stayed like that forever. So you're in the morning, you have free time to do weights or any extra running or whatever on your own. By then I wasn't doing a lot of weights yet, not till I was, again, I think probably added weights that next Olympic cycle.
Gotcha.
between age 20 and 24.
Yep.
Just to add more power and strength at that time, right?
Yep.
Because the judo is there, it's not like you're dreaming up any great, brilliant moves. You're just trying to make your moves better, faster, and stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
From that point on. You're adding a little tweak or a change.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you spot something at a tournament that you like to maybe explore and add to what you're doing. But when it comes to the heat of the battle, you're really just doing a few different techniques that you're really good with, have good counterattacks and a good defense,
Well, from my understanding,
that's
it's quite
sort
a
of
flow, right? Too. There's a bit of kind of got it in. You're in there, and you're there. You're very in the moment, right?
Yeah. You and the other guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's totally different.
Yeah, and so most of that training is that for that first Olympics, I guess, before the weights. That's mostly on the mat, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so you're on the mat. So you're doing ground sparring.
Yep.
Morning, usually we would do ground techniques and fighting and grappling on the ground.
Gotcha.
So judo matches are 5 minutes.
Yep.
And usually we would fight 6-minute matches.
Okay.
And quite often 6-minute matches. So you're pretty much fighting to exhaustion.
Oh, yeah.
You might take a break with a guy now and then, but 6 out of 6, you're pretty much exhausted after each one.
I'd imagine.
So you do one, and then the heavier group is using the mat, and then these guys come off. The next lighter, middleweight down, they come out and do their 6 minutes. Dang, your turn. Fine, you found a new partner now. You get out there.
Gotcha.
So you go back and forth, and all the calisthenics and training and push-ups and all of that on the mat. You do it together as a team. There's audibles and counting all on, whoever's leading that day. Mm-hmm. One of the captains would probably normally lead the warm-ups. And when I say warm-ups, you're stretching and loosening up and getting hot.
More dynamic, I'm assuming.
There's running, and then you're doing like circuits,
Oh, wow.
Sprinting across the mat, push-ups at one end, sit-ups
Lots
at the
of body
other.
weight circuit stuff then.
Yeah.
That's
carrying guys, dragging guys, all this really physical stuff on the mat without weights. And then after that, you might be taking some fluids, and then you do your sparring. Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow.
And then usually you'd go eat at the dorms, wherever you're staying, whatever your hotel, whatever you're doing, for these major camps.
Yeah, of course.
I'm talking about. And then afternoon session comes, and now you're doing pretty much the same thing, but now you're doing stand-up techniques.
Gotcha. So more
pretty
groundwork,
normal,
more stand-up, just like the different aspects of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Pretty much that's how they were doing it back then. I know they've juggled and changed things now a little bit.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Things have changed, evolved since my day.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, they've changed in the last 5 years for a lot of sports, too, so you never know. But in terms of, I know it's talking about the difference between now and then, the mental side of sport is a lot bigger now, it seems like. Was there any training, talk about mental, like focus and stuff like that with your judoka instructors and stuff like that? You
bet. Like, aside from your coach and your coaches, because by then you've got like coaches across the country that are traveling with you to go to Europe for the circuit there, or South America, or if you're going to Asia, to Japan or Korea or whatever's going on. It may not be your personal coach. It's one of the national coaches. But aside from that, whenever you had camps, and usually in the summer, we'd have national camps.
Gotcha.
Vancouver, Lethbridge, always a center.
Oh, awesome.
Montreal, Toronto. It would move around, and then they kind of started focusing more out east, because most of our team was located out there, and the National Training Center was there. So a lot of the top athletes would travel and go to Montreal and live there all year round, and then we'd have national camps where we all had to be there, prepping for competitions, So they would bring in special fitness and weight training people.
Oh, wow.
They would bring in sports psychologists.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep, and they'd lecture us and talk to us right on the mat usually, sometimes in a classroom if we were staying at Concordia or U of T or something.
And what kind of stuff would they talk about? Like specifically
just being mentally prepared and, never don't overestimate the guy you're fighting. Don't underestimate yourself. Things like that. You kind of know, but
Yeah.
they're reinforcing all these things.
Yeah, because I mean, I was never a judoka guy, but I played hockey, baseball, different sports, and I mean, yeah, you're right. We know that stuff as athletes.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate all, but it's easy, and at least I found it. It's easy to get ahead of yourself and to lose sight of
that can happen.
those
You
little
bet.
things, right?
Yeah.
So
I fought a lot of world champions and guys that were really, had been more accomplished by the time I got to them. And, you're always thinking, geez, it's going to be tough to beat this guy. But, you've seen him compete. You've seen what he can do.
Yeah.
I know what I can do. Think about this. You can beat this guy.
Yeah.
So it happens. The problem is there's so many good guys.
Oh, I know.
Can you beat them all the same tournament?
Yeah.
So you do beat a guy that's been an Olympic medalist, or you beat a world champion or something. But there's 4 more guys you got to beat.
I was just going to say this.
You beat that especially guy? When you're, and it all depends. Sometimes when you go to open tournaments like the German Open, the Dutch Open, Hungary, wherever you were, the British Open.
Yep.
You're not just talking one guy per country a lot I bet. Yeah. Like the home country's got like 4 guys or whatever. The German Open, could be lots of guys. You got to win like 12 matches to win the gold medal in one day.
And it's
not easy.
Oh.
By the time you come off the mat from your first match,
you're completely drained.
if you didn't do your job, you're coming off. You're totally exhausted. You've pushed yourself to the limit. You have to recover so that you can do your next match. If you win,
and that's
if you lose, you're out.
How quick is that recovery? Like how when would your next
so when
match
you're
be?
starting with a large group,
Yeah.
the matches are further apart.
Yes, of
but
course.
then when that draw schedule starts getting smaller, the matches come closer together.
Gotcha.
And depending on the tournaments, a lot of times you'd get a nice rest between the semifinal and the final.
Okay, that seems appropriate, I guess.
So you'd have like after supper, the final starts sort of thing. So you've had some time to replenish and fuel up
digest a little bit too.
Yeah. Can't overdo it, of course, because you've got to get out there and
exert yourself for the 12th time that day.
And a lot of the tournaments are different. You're worried about weigh-ins all the time. Just about always weigh-ins were in the morning before your competition. You got lucky sometimes where there were weigh-ins the day before.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was kind of fun sometimes because you'd drop your weight and then you could, do
whatever you want after
have
that.
Supper, replenish fluids, and everyone thinks, oh, geez, I'm going to get, like I fought minus 95 kilograms as a light heavyweight back then. Now it's minus 100. But, you think you go, oh, geez, I'm going to weigh in the day before. I'm going to be 102 pounds by.
Oh, if you can.
That doesn't happen. You're maybe 96 and a half or 97 at the most.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not like you're zooming back in because you've been watching your weight for so long.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the, I don't know, interesting is, it doesn't seem like a good enough word. Like for me, it's admirable, the weight cutting that these combative sports have to do. Like if you're talking about
time.
Judo, wrestling, the MMA, if you want to throw that in there, but just that's got to be mentally draining too, though. No, like you're physically, just done, but mentally too, like to stay there and to be ready and to have no fuel in your body to make it move, let alone think. Like, is that a challenge in itself too?
It absolutely is. It's like winning your first match. Like you're going to make sure that on the morning between 7 and 9 o'clock or 7 and 10 or whenever the weigh-in is, you're going to make sure that and you only get one chance.
Yeah.
You get on there, you've got to be under.
And if you're not,
you've lost. Yeah. You're out. So that's a scary proposition when, you're being funded to go travel to a tournament, the Dutch Open and the German Open, for example, back-to-back tournaments, and you don't make the weigh-in. Well, you got a lot of money to pay back.
Yep.
There's fines for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you have to be careful. And you know what? If you're into it, you got to. Who does it? You make the weigh-in. Like you're
making it.
Yeah, you're making
kind of like
weigh-in.
It's not like a necessarily easy thing to do, but that's like you're doing that.
For some
you
people,
can control it.
For some people, it's their first big battle.
Yeah.
And you get used to it over a long period of time. You know how to make a weigh-in.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and when you're training hard and you're very fit, you're training a little bit heavier, especially in my weight class. You can carry a little extra weight compared to a featherweight.
Oh,
Me losing 7 pounds is a lot easier than someone, in lightweight that's trying to lose 3.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot to lose.
There's only so much more weight
I've
they can
got a
lose.
little bit bigger frame, and you've got room to move, right? And it's easier to train a bit heavier too. But in a hard practice, I remember in hockey even, you'd have to write down your weight. A lot of us, you could lose 10 pounds in a practice.
Oh, I imagine.
And in the game.
It's pure water weight, right?
Yeah. And you're drinking water the whole game.
Yep.
And in judo, same thing. When we're in practice, like I told you, those 2-a-days, you're easily dropping 10 pounds, especially in Montreal and Toronto. In the summertime when you're feeling all the extra humidity there, it's a struggle, and you lose a lot of water weight.
Yep, I imagine.
During the practice, quite easily over 10 pounds in our weight division.
Gotcha.
As a light heavyweight.
Yeah.
Very easily in a day with two practices.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that is fascinating. And I want to get back to the Olympics too. So 76 Montreal, that's the first one we did, right? And then what was your, I guess, let's start with most memorable out of the 4, right? So there's Montreal.
that was very memorable. And
Canadian
the thing is, I wasn't even supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And you're going through all of this stuff. They're giving you all your Canada gear, and they're telling you we're outside the Olympic Stadium, and the housing was across. They built the pyramids in Montreal.
Oh, cool.
That became family homes afterwards.
Right. Yes. Okay.
2 identical buildings right across the street. And so we all stayed there, and they just started walking everybody across country by country. The signs were up. You got behind your thing, and you learned a lot of things about being in the march-in. I remember we were in the middle. You're like 12 abreast, and we're all in the middle. So you can't see anybody, and nobody at home can see you. So I learned right away from that experience, always be on the outside lane.
That's where
because your folks and family and wife and everybody's looking for you. They can't see you. So, so we got pretty smart about that. Especially people that have been doing it now a few times.
Oh, I bet.
All these new rookies, and they're going through what we did. They don't know.
Well, and you're just taking it all.
So don't forget, I was going to be going to, I did get a call from the Cincinnati Stingers in the World Hockey League while I was in Montreal.
Holy crap.
And my dad is telling them that I'm in Montreal at the Olympics.
Yeah.
I'll be home Labor Day or something. Yeah, on my way home. So they said, phone back when he's here. They phoned me, and their plan was to get me to go to their farm team in the Southern Hockey League in Roanoke, West Virginia, and play there. And I thought they were calling me to come and see if I could make the Stingers.
Make the Stingers, yeah.
Professional league at the time, and so they said, well, no, we'd like to have a look at you and keep you down there in the farm team and see what happens. I said, oh, geez, I'm really fit right now. I'm ready to go. I get my skate legs back in less than a week. I'm ready to rock.
Yeah.
And they said, well, that's our plan, Joe. So I said, you know what? Phone me 1 week from today and I'll give you an answer. And I turned it down and said, you know what? I'm going to, not to them. I decided I'm not going to do that. Thank you for the offer.
Yeah.
And I decided I was going to pursue an Olympic medal and just do judo.
That's cool.
Get a job.
So that was the decision.
Which was a real, Well, I made that decision in a week between when he called again. And it was a tough decision because hockey was all I ever really wanted to do for a living. Because, man, doing something you love to do and,
do something you love and call it work.
Call it work, man. So that's what happened. I trained really hard, made the team again in 1980.
Yep.
And there's a boycott.
Then that was the Moscow one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was sad.
I bet.
Here's the thing about that. I'd already gone once. And I'm a light heavyweight. I could certainly go try and make another team after that.
Sure.
But think about all of those people. This is their one shot to go to the Olympic Games. They train. Maybe, everyone thinks it's a 4-year thing, but, if you're going to your first Olympics, you didn't start that sport 4 years ago.
You trained your whole life.
You've been training for that to get to that point. So for whatever reason, you got injured.
Yeah.
And you couldn't train properly, and then you recovered, but then you weren't at your top level when you needed to be to make that qualifying moment to make that team. Or maybe you got injured right before.
Yep.
Maybe now you're too old for your sport. Now there's a new superstar.
Yeah, exactly.
There's all kinds of things that can happen. Or just there was
that one point you lost the one time.
So you've got one shot at it. And, I've never really looked at this or considered it, but I wonder how many people from that 1980 team never did go again. I know some, they marched us out to Toronto, gave us all our gear anyways.
Yep.
We knew we weren't going. They marched us around CNE Field at the time, Stadium.
Okay.
And, Canada signed flags, threw a couple of nice banquets and said, rah, rah, Canada, but sorry, we're not going.
Yeah.
Brutal. So then we flew home with all our luggage and gear that they gave us, and that was it. I've never even seen that tape. They took all this film and tape and everything, and I'm sure I could look it up and see it. I never thought of it till today.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And and you say that like how many people never got the chance to actually compete?
Exactly.
Period, who made the team that year?
So those are the people you kind of feel sorry for. I mean, sure I wanted to go to Moscow.
Oh,
all of us did. We're not going because some country, Russia, is invading Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And the funny part about that is they didn't even get out till 1988. The last Olympics I went to.
2 Olympics had gone before that, yeah.
So
then
after that, I trained and made another team.
Might as well do it again, right?
And I made Los Angeles.
And that's 84?
And that was 84 in Los Angeles. And I really had a good chance there, And keep in mind that the East Bloc countries boycotted. So they didn't come to Los Angeles.
Oh, so I didn't know that, actually. I knew about the Moscow boycott,
so
but I didn't realize
it thinned out the herd a little bit.
Gotcha.
But I'll tell you, in a lot of the weight classes, you could have picked, 4 or 5 different guys for the gold medal.
Yeah. Oh, it was tight then. Hey?
And maybe, 10 guys on the podium. There were guarantees of people that would probably be on there, but you weren't maybe sure where they'd end up.
Yeah.
A lot of real hotshot favorites. Maybe it worked out. Then it did. But man, you could have picked anybody in my weight class. Like there were so many guys that could have been on the podium, and it was.
So it was kind of it's up for anybody that year. Not really any front runners, it sounds like, or
well, there was.
There was, okay.
Yeah. There were favorites. The Belgian Van de Waal, the Frenchman, the Korean, who ended up winning the gold.
Gotcha. Yep.
Barely beat a first-time Olympian from Brazil that got the silver medal.
Wow.
That's cool. The bronze medal went to the first and only medal, I believe, that Iceland ever won. Friedrichsen got a bronze in my weight class.
Wow. That's pretty
crazy. Nobody was picking him to be on the podium.
Yeah.
I
had him on
my first match, I fought Japan.
Okay.
Or my second match. I won my first match. Then I beat Japan, one of the favorites, I believe. And I beat him by a full point, knocked him out of the tournament.
Awesome.
And then I lost a decision to the Korean who won the gold.
Who ended up winning the gold. Gotcha.
And then I lost for the bronze against the German.
Wow.
So that's the year. And my good friend, Kevin Doherty, middleweight, he asked me one time, he says, if you could have 2 matches back that you could have in your career, which ones would they be? Because he had the ones in his mind. Mm-hmm. And, I think both in the same tournament. I really felt I could have beat the Korean.
Yep.
And I fought the German in 82 in the Canada Cup in Quebec City, and I fought him there for the bronze, and I beat him for the bronze.
Wow.
So I only fought him twice. He beat me for the bronze in the Canada Cup in 82. I beat him there. I'm sorry.
So you beat him there, and then
he beat me in the Olympics. So I beat him the wrong time.
Yeah, exactly. Fair enough.
So those are the 2 matches I would want back.
That's a great. Thank you for that question. I sure had that down here. No, that's. So it's interesting. Going back to what you asked me, which ones were favorite? Well, Montreal was pretty special in my own country. first
on
time
that
too.
field. Everyone's just roaring. All the other teams are already on the infield, waiting for the host country to come in, and it was just awesome.
Oh,
of course, we missed Moscow, so you can't place that one anywhere. And then I would say LA was for sure
like a 1-1
one of my
almost.
favorite of the four, for sure. You know, maybe like you say, tied with Montreal.
Yeah,
came really close.
Yeah, right there, right.
And now we don't know what we're going to do. I'm 28, and we've got our kids, our
there's life outside of it, of course. Yeah,
and then we're thinking about our second child and what are we going to do. So Leslie said, and she was there, my family was there, and in LA watching me. And she goes, oh, what are we going to do now? You can't quit now, she goes, and it's such a grind. I go, oh, wow, 4 more years.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens. So we got home, we had a good talk, and we decided that let's go for
one more.
Seoul.
Yeah.
And if I could keep my standard and qualify, I wasn't going to just, go to nationals and international meets and just be so. If I couldn't compete, I wasn't going to try.
You're going for a purpose.
Yeah.
Course, yeah.
So I managed to win the nationals every year after that, and I qualified and did good enough internationally to make the team.
Yep.
So I made the team in '88, and I lost second round to Italy.
Oh.
So that was kind of funny with my family. And
because you have Italian heritage, right?
Yes, and we're talking back and forth, and they're going, "Oh, you shouldn't have moved to Canada. You should have stayed in Italy." So that was kind of a fun thing in the family, and it was a close match. I lost a close match again.
Yep.
And he happened to lose the next match, which put me out.
Gotcha. I see that. Yep.
Yeah, Brazilian repertoire system at the time. So.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was the end of it. So I made a plan that was going to be the end, So it was really funny.
And you knew that going into that last one.
Yeah, we pretty much decided this is going to be it. I've got the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
After that day in Seoul, end of September, I'm going to pack it in.
Yeah. Interesting. And then, so you hear, at least I hear a lot about the transition between being an athlete and then not competing at least anymore, right? I think everybody's always an athlete, once an athlete, right? But what was that process like? It sounds like it might have been easier because you knew going into it. A lot of people, if an injury forces you out or something, that's a bit harder to deal with, I assume. But what was that like, that transition from competing and training, that 4-year goal, to now you're done in Seoul?
Yeah, you know what? Because I always had something to compete for and do, until you're 32 years old.
Yeah.
I didn't really consider Barcelona. A few people that retired and wanted to come back.
Yeah. Because
of the system at the time, you could kind of work your way back in the last 2 years, last year even. If you win the nationals, then you get a fight off with the guy with the most points to see who goes. So you could actually have done it. I didn't really have that. I stayed completely away from that. I got back involved on the ice with my buddies.
Oh, awesome.
Doing just some senior hockey and stuff like that, which was a lot of fun. And so I stayed competitive through just local slow pitch and hockey. And I started my own judo school after that. And so I kind of stayed involved,
Yeah.
And, I had to make a living.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So I started selling life insurance with Sun Life in 1977, right after the Olympic Games. I was 20 years old when I went to apply with them.
Wow.
And didn't know what was going to happen there, and it worked out.
Yeah.
I'm still doing that today.
I was going to say, because you're still selling life insurance now.
Yeah, right? I'm an independent broker now. I left Sun Life, back in 1991 or so.
Okay.
And I have no regrets. It worked out.
That's awesome.
I mean, I always wanted to be a hockey player, but I sure saw a lot of the world doing judo. Didn't make any money doing judo.
No, but
they make decent money now. They make decent money now. Things have changed. Yeah. I don't know exactly. Every country is a little bit different.
Of course.
They can make. There's a professional circuit.
Make a living.
They can make a decent living. Yeah.
Awesome. And I caught you in there. You started your own judo club. Was that here in Lethbridge?
Yes.
So that's one of the things that I like to kind of highlight is just giving that concept of giving back to the community, right? That you kind of were raised up in. So if you kind of wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that and that experience and what it meant to you to start your own judo club in the place that you were born and raised.
Yeah. At first, it was going to be really hard because, I started at the Lethbridge Judo Club, but, I kind of felt like I wanted to do my own thing. I
Gotcha.
think my family thought, geez, why don't you have your own school and see what happens? Now, you're going up against a long time established club and your own personal coach and, but yeah, I ended up doing it.
Yep.
And I think went almost 25 years, 22 years.
Wow.
And it was fun. I had a lot of great kids over the years.
Yeah.
Some now their kids are in the Lethbridge Judo Club.
Yep.
And they're involved. And so that's kind of cool. I'm kind of in a bad way with feet and my back and things. And so I'm not on the mat very much at all. And I'd really like to get back at the Lethbridge Judo Club and just kind of not really get involved with all the coaching and people that are, but just kind of
be a mentor or
just help out and, supervise a few younger kids, and not interfere too much with the coaches that are dealing with guys at that are kind of at that level trying to be national and international competitors. So I'm sure I could help out a little bit there if they want me to, but just haven't really thought much about how I'm going to handle that. They're back on the mats now. It's kind of exciting. My nephew, who did judo in my school, his son just started this year. He's going to be at the Lethbridge Judo Club. So that might be another little catalyst that gets me back on the mat, at least just to show up once in a while. And, these kids are seeing my name and stuff at the club, but they've never seen me.
Cool to see that legacy at least.
So maybe, yeah.
And I mean, pretty cool time to get back into it. You got like your history there, and then you also have our recent gold medalist with Christina Deguchi, right? Like
yes.
And she, I believe, is started at least has been affiliated with the Lethbridge Judo Club.
Yeah, she became a Canadian. Her father is a Canadian citizen,
right? Yeah,
and she thought it might be a better route for her. From what I understand, I've never met her.
Yeah, of course, I've met her.
And she really hasn't been in Lethbridge a lot, but she registered with the Lethbridge Judo Club. I guess what happened was she was asking the provincial associations, who wants to,
trying to find a place to start
a place where she could be registered and be a Canadian judoka.
Yeah.
So she ended up, Lethbridge was the landing spot where everyone's happy to have her. And
of course,
she carried the Lethbridge label, so that's good for us.
Oh, it's great for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that happens with a lot of countries.
Oh yeah, that happens all over the place.
You look at some of the competitors, like even with Germany or England, France, you look at all these athletes and you wonder, geez, that doesn't sound like a French name, or that's not a German name. But
I mean,
they become
international world
international
now, right?
citizens and all of that, and they fight for different countries.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so that happens.
And I guess one thing I kind of skipped over here, I just realized I did really want to talk to you about is what it meant to represent Canada, to wear that maple leaf, to be, was there a feeling of that for you, or was it more of like, or even just representing Lethbridge, representing your family? Was that something that kind of meant something to you?
You bet. Very special for me and most of the Olympian team members, I think. I mean, I was born and raised here, and I love Lethbridge. I would never live anywhere else. I've been very fortunate. Leslie and I have traveled a lot, and with our daughters, Lindsay and Ashley. You do it for your city and yourself and your province and for sure Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big Leaf fan, and I never say we because I never played for the Leafs. I was supposed to play for the Leafs as far as I was concerned. But I do say we for the Olympics.
Of course.
Because I'm a Canadian and those guys are we're all on the same team. We're Canadians.
I agree.
So I do say we for that. And I get it. You're a big fan. You love the Green Bay Packers, or like I say, the Leafs. And you can say we, I guess, because you're behind them. You
all know the memorabilia, sure. But
I got it. But for Canada, it's we. And I dearly, dearly wanted to win a medal, and bring it home to Canada, right? But we've got thank God we've got athletes that are doing that.
I
We're
mean,
getting
yeah,
better in a lot of sports.
It's so cool watching.
And in judo.
Yeah, and watching this, like, first, like our hammer throw guy this year too, right? Like we have so many athletes.
I mean,
representing
how
us
exciting
and
was
doing-
that?
Oh, it was such a cool
Man, and he just shattered the record. And at such a young age in that
Yeah, it was
sport. You know,
20
like
years old, something like that. Yeah,
he's going to be collecting medals for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and we got that swim. I know we're jumping around a bit here, but Summer McIntosh, the swimmer,
how exciting!
What is she?
You know,
she was 14 or something at her first Olympic Games, and now she's got a bright future ahead of her,
a lot of dominant athletes.
At the top of half that swimming world.
Exciting.
Getting back to judo and you yourself a little bit, just before we do some wrap up stuff. One thing I like to ask all our guests here is how would you like to be remembered, or what would you, if stumbling over my words here, like a legacy, if you were to have that, what would be the way you want people to talk about you?
Well, you know, I loved sports, and I gave it everything I had when I did whatever it was, from Little League baseball to minor hockey to playing Western Canada Hockey League, and certainly in my judo career. Just, you know, and I told this to my students many times. I'm sure I'm not the one that invented this. I'm positive I didn't. But, you know, when you do something, train hard.
Yep.
And when it's time to perform in competition, give it everything you've got. Give it your best effort. Don't say after, geez, I left it on the table.
No, like you said, you had no regrets, right?
Yeah, you got to give it everything. And, you know, if you win, great. If you don't, well, you know, take that as a learning experience.
Yes.
You know, what happened there? How can I improve from what just happened in that match? Or, you know, what did we do? What did I do in that hockey game that I could have done better to help the team? Like, think about those things and move on from there, you know. Try not to be negative. And the only way you're going to be negative is if you don't prepare yourself.
Oh, sure.
So you have to prepare yourself, and you can have a strong, positive mental attitude.
100%.
And perform at your peak.
Yeah, that's all. And I like what you said there too, the learning, because like my colleague Sean here, he's a coach as well, and he's talked to me about is he tells his athletes, you know, you never lose. You win or you learn. And even when you win, you learn too. But it's just, I love that mentality.
I like that. It's a lot shorter than what I just blurted out.
It gets the same message though.
Same message.
And the kind of that concept that you can translate everything you just said, right? That never give up. You work hard, put your all into it.
Yeah.
You do that with sport, and you can translate that to life.
You bet.
I'm assuming, right? Like that's
absolutely.
So, and I guess you kind of mentioned that, but is there any other like final thoughts, final advice that you'd like to be able to give to aspiring young people who are getting into judo or getting into sport in general?
Well, no, I think basically what I just said, and make sure you're having fun.
Yeah.
Because if it's not fun, if you're being pushed to do something you don't want to do, you know, hopefully you can get to a spot in your life where you can say, hey, listen, I don't really want to do this. I got to move on and get into something
maybe it's a different sport, right?
Yeah, you bet. Have fun and be positive.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for me today. Is there any questions I guess you have for us here or anything like that? Or
no? I'm sounds great. Awesome. Sounds like you're doing a lot of these right now.
Yeah, we're doing on. We're actually.
I know there's a lot of super athletes in Lethbridge, and hopefully you can get.
It's one of the coolest things. Like I've been here this is my 6th year in Lethbridge, and you know I've been involved a little bits in the sport community, did a little bit of coaching, but until this last year and a half, and with the Olympics coming out that we just had, there is such a cool sport community here in Lethbridge.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so tight. There's so many people here involved in different, like a multitude of sports. There's so many different options and avenues available for kids to try and just to, you know, learn a little bit about something new.
Oh, for sure.
It's one of my favorite parts about this community.
Yeah, you bet.
But yeah, anyways,
it's always been like that.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Joe. This has been amazing. I really enjoyed your story. It's stuff I appreciate it. And,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, of course. And for all our listeners out there, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. And we'll have another special guest on us next time. Until then, take care.